You ever think about quitting?
It's the combat of life hammering the snot out of you.
Well, stand by, dig in deep, and get ready to get fired up with us.
Welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast, the #1 podcast that inspires you to fight on. I'm your host, David Rutherford, here with Mr. Never Quit himself, Marcus Luttrell.
Our mission is to help you embrace the suck of life, to teach you the values of working your ass off, and to interview the most hard-charging people on planet Earth.
We know life is hard. It's time for you to suck it up, Buttercup, and let us teach you to persevere in every environment imaginable by sharing real-world lessons learned by those who never quit. That's right. It's time, Marcus, for us to help them defeat the negative insurgency in their lives.
You fire me up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's roll.
Let's roll.
All right, Marcus. Dun 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 dun. All right, brother. This is a big show, man. This is a big deal. Now, I know you and I have talked over and over and over and over again that we were never going to discuss politics. We were never going to get into the any of this stuff. But I think it's important with where we're at. We're in a very unique time and place, and what the Wizard and you and me were talking about doing, man, is to take a step back, because we're bringing on an awesome guest, somebody that's going to give some real insight into his pop in a really unique way. So before we get into that, I
thought it was cool we got a chance to do this. Different than we normally do on the podcast, but step away and get a chance to have him on and ask some questions that we've been thinking about.
Oh, totally. I mean, and these are important things that were popping up in our brains, right? And the meaning of big things, and to want to get into more of the depth of the character and the integrity of his pop. I think that was important to me. I mean, I think that's the one thing that's really been, under question right now, and what's going on. And
sure,
I that's why I'm stoked we were able to do that. But before we get to Don Jr., let's you and I have a talk, all right, man? Because this is a powerful time we're in.
Something's on your mind.
Well, it is. It really is, and it's been. I was on the road all last week, and did a bunch of different events, and people kept hitting me up, man. They're like, "What do you think? What do you think? What do you?" And I
so you got some questions.
I got a bunch, man.
All right, yeah.
I got a bunch, and so I thought we should be able to just talk about it a little bit, and so the way we'll reference this thing is what do you and I think that will make America great again? What do you think?
Let's try it.
All right, so let's try this. So the first one we're going to talk about, and is something that I think is very important to you and I, is the VA healthcare system.
Yeah.
And so obviously you have been, had a huge part of that, in your life in terms of your recovery. And I'm just starting to get into it myself. Just started submitting some claims and going through the process. Now, I remember when I first got out the teams, I had, my stomach was jacked up, dude. I went on anyway. So I turned all this stuff in, man. And you know what their response to me was a couple weeks later? We have no idea what's affecting you. We're sorry. And that was it. Now, granted, that was in the beginning. That was right when everything was kidding. But fast forward, man, we're still struggling.
It's tough. I mean, because the VA, once it finally makes it to the news and they break that out, and just think, because everything that's on right now, it's tough to stay focused on that. But it is it's a travesty, because the doctors and nurses there, they want to be there, right? They're great. When I went in there and dealt with them, it's fantastic. Once it gets above that, and the plain fact that you got our brothers and sisters dying in the street, man, that's unsatisfying. That's just criminal, right?
Well, here's a crazy statistic that I pulled up for this one, and this was
disgusting. Keep going with it.
Oh, I mean, so here's one I got for you. So as of September 30th, 2014, more than 307,000 pending records in the enrollment system, right? And about 35% of those totals were individuals who had died months or even years ago. I mean, that's catastrophic, brother. And we're getting ready to come into, all the 9/11 babies
it's crazy
retiring.
Because when our healthcare system, while we're in the military, it's awesome, right? You got a dental appointment, get over there. You go in, dental appointment, you're out. I mean, just bam. where did that break go? Where did that come from? Why can't we just stick the general up at the top, let him run it like, or an admiral up there and run it like a ship like it's supposed to, and keep that flow going?
Well, I think partly because, the reality is because.
Take care of our own, right? We take care of our own.
That's what I would do,
When
right?
did that stop?
I don't know, man. I think anytime bureaucracy gets too big, there's a tendency where people get a little lazy. And I'm not saying by any measure everybody in the VA system.
Keep putting it out in the open like it's broken, but nothing ever gets. That's the frustrating part.
Right? There's nobody fixing anything. In fact, when you look at these cats,
It gets worse or something.
So here's another crazy thing, that in nearly 189,000 employees received more than $177 million in bonuses for the fiscal year of 2015. That's according to USA Today, man.
They shouldn't get paid that much. Obviously, that's
right.
That's a ridiculous number. That's what my point. But the overall point is.
So regardless of who goes in office, I think
it's so frustrating. I don't even know how to be frustrated at it. I'm trying to make my point here, but I can't get it. Damn it. Fix it.
You know what we could do.
You walk into any hospital, if you got a problem with your military ID, throw it on the counter, and then leave.
It should work like a credit card, right? Like a credit card.
I had a credit card. You walk in there with that ID, throw it on there. Like, I served this country valiantly, man. I got kind of jacked up, caught something over I can't get rid of. Got the number 3s. You mind if I come in here and get some IVs? Sure. Special room right over there for you.
There's the VA room
sitting in there. Exactly. There's a military doctor in every hospital. So if you got a vet that walks in there, it's its own clinic.
Yeah. And it would streamline all this. I like your ideas, man. You're on point.
Your doctors. I grew up, man. My sawbones has been taking care of me since I was a boy. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
He knows when I'm coming in there and milking it, and when I'm not milking it. But it just seems like sometimes things can get so complicated that they break down.
Bureaucracy too big.
I just have a hard time believing that everybody who runs for public office goes up there and is bad. I don't think
it's not true.
It's not true. The system itself is so condensed, and it flows in such a way that even the best of intentions, you get up in there and it takes so long to break into there. Everyone, it's like the SEAL teams. Morgan made this he used this analogy. He's like, man, people who run for office say, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. It'd be kind of like a new guy getting into the SEAL teams or one platoon wonder. Remember, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm here to change everything. No, you ain't. You got to get in there and work your way up. And that's why you have to be motivated. A lot of people get in there and they hit those walls or whatnot, and then they back up, and then it's all about real. Yeah, exactly. Well, if you go in there with the mindset like, hey, I only got 4 years to get something radical done, I'm gonna make as much noise as humanly possible.
Amen. And that's what I think we need. I think that's obvious that needs to happen. Now, one of the things that, I think that's a good segue into another discussion is the concept of long-term politicians and our political infrastructure right now. Would you agree with term limits for politicians?
I think, well, I don't want to ever mess with the Constitution and the baseline and all that, but I think that somebody's a career politician and never spent 1 second in the civilian sector, military or business, whatever it is. It's kind of hard for me to completely understand that you could comprehend what was going on out here.
Oh, brother, it's impossible.
I think if guys go in and run for office and then serve and then leave, and then you have to skip.
At least a bunch. Yeah, there's got to be a break in service, right?
There's got to be a break in 30 years. You're a 30-year guy? Because we have 30-year military, of course, that's completely different. I mean, when you look at it, but...
Well, hold on a sec.
Go out back, because look, man, out here in the real world, it changes every day. It's kind of like in war, right? If you're not in combat, if you're out of there for more than 30 days, you don't have anything to say. The battle rhythm's already changed, just like... the American.
No, I know where you're going. You're totally going. Yeah. So you look at the culture clash. Well, I like to think about like this, man. Think about this. You do 20 years in the teams and you get out and try and become a civilian. It ain't easy, man, because it's a whole different op tempo. It's a whole different set of rules. It's a whole different thing. But so I like where you're going with that there should be mandatory breaks in service where people have to go out, become reintegrated in what's actually going on, man. And I think that would be a lot better for sure.
And that's why it's so important that's what I love about this country, is because we shift power so often every 4 to 8 years, and then it kind of bleeds down. But that's why the states are so important.
It's everything.
I mean, all those people that are elected from the states, they go up in there and how it's supposed to run. And I understand that's why it takes a long time to get things done as well, because people from Texas, we think a little bit differently, and we act a little bit differently than people from up north and from the East Coast, from the West Coast. So you got to melt them together and then come to a common ground. Sure. Yeah, it's got to be tough. I see that now. I've been up there. I've hung out with them. Like, I get it, man. They do take heavies. I mean, that job shouldn't be fun, right? I mean,
no.
And just getting up there and having the moxie to stand tall. And but here, the caveat to that is you got to remember who put you there.
Amen.
That's the toughest part.
And represent them.
Represent them. So man, I would never want to do that job.
Well, this is an interesting pivot right here. Let's stick with this constitutional concept that you're driving down right now, because I think this is very interesting, especially when you look at the fact that we have, some potential big Supreme Court nominees coming up, right? I mean, there's three, Ginsburg's 88, Kennedy's 80, Breyer is 78. So there's got to be some new Supreme Court justices coming on board. Now, if you were thinking about, Marcus, you got an opportunity to put somebody in, right? Put somebody in power there. And how do you think about that? I mean, that's got to be a massive, imagine that falling on your shoulders. I mean, it's a big deal.
You don't really understand how important those justices are.
They're huge. They're everything.
Were we talking about that where the statue, the justice should be blind?
Yeah, absolutely,
blind.
Right?
I mean, they can't see. They're blind.
The scales.
Yeah, exactly. And
man, I remember growing up, my dad had that little statue, the Lady Justice. in his office. And I always used to dig it, man. I was like, and I remember we used to say, well, why does she have a blindfold on? She's got to be able to see what she's doing. And she's like, and my pop was like, no, because true justice is an adherence to the strict law of the land.
Right. So what if all of our judges were blind?
I think when our forefathers set up the three branches of government, they never intended for the Supreme Court to become, one, as powerful as it did, and two, that it would become politicized, right? Because
we have a space station above us, as you can see from Earth. I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know what I mean, they weren't planning for. That's why that Constitution is so great. I mean, it's
a living docket,
right?
Yeah.
You grew up. I mean, your dad is a judge, man. You know all about this, how it works. Yeah. So
and it was a real big part of the high schools that I went to was civics and learning about American history in terms of that as it relates to the Constitution. And I was very fortunate to understand that early on. The challenge is you don't feel, until you're staring at, potentially losing your Second Amendment rights or a manipulation of immigration.
Do you think they do that?
I don't know, brother. I can't answer that.
Someone who is so, the Supreme Court justices are so, the Constitution is their life, right?
It should be.
You think that even if you put 5 of the most liberal justices on there, that they would take that out of there?
I don't know. It's about interpretation.
I have no idea either.
It's a question. I think the important thing that you and I are trying to raise to people who are listening to this show in particular is these are questions you need to fundamentally be asking yourself during this election, because our two candidates, right, regardless of anything, they have two very differences of opinions. When you think about voting and what it means, right, and the fact that only about 60% of registered eligible voters cast ballots in the last 4 elections. What's that about? And so I think one of the things that, it's important.
What's that great line? If you didn't vote, you can't complain for the next 4 years.
Exactly. Although here's an interesting thing, and I don't know if you saw, I was going to send you this. It came out a couple weeks ago. You know Mike Rowe, right? Mike is, the dude who does the shows on Dirtiest Jobs.
Love that guy.
He's the best, right?
Oh,
he's the best. He's absolutely like one of my favorite dudes out there, because he's got that great common sense that he likes to throw out. So one of the things,
sense of humor's got to be epic to do that job.
Oh,
right?
you have to.
I just love to hang out with that guy because of I watched that show, man.
Oh, I still watch too. I mean, he's got the new one because someone's got to do it or something like that. I still love that as well. Well, anyways, so remember, I don't know if you saw, but those stars from LA did the little chopped up video why you should vote, all that stuff. Well, someone sent him an email and it said, hey, Mike, you need to come out and tell those, respond to that, thinking that he was this hardcore, opposition to them or whatever. But Mike came out in his common sense approach way, which was so cool. And he says, listen, there are some people out there who shouldn't vote. there are some people out there who are not doing enough to educate themselves on the power of these issues and how it's going to influence them. So is it important that they go cast an uninformed ballot?
That's kind of turned into part of it.
Right? If you're not willing to recognize that this is how our system works, this is what's important. If you don't understand what that a candidate needs 270 electoral votes to win the election, not just the popular vote, right? Then you gotta ask yourself, why don't I care that much about it, right?
Well, then you start to see as you get older and you have kids and a family and more responsibilities, actually to survive out here in
the real world.
In the real world, I mean, you kind of look at it like, well, all right, well, that voting deal is huge, and you know that better than anybody. We've been over there where they can't vote.
Nothing. It's dictatorial.
I mean, you bring in a foreign military to set up shop so people have the right to vote on top. I mean, scariest thing is that they're going to die. They're walking around with those blue fingers, man. That's a death sentence.
Literally.
But it was so important that happened, and and I don't, like I said, when you're young, you don't really. I mean, who care about that stuff, right?
No, just tell me what my mission is and let me.
What do you need me to do? Get out of the way, that kind of thing. And that's another beautiful thing about growing up in America is you evolve and you see what's important and that these are important decisions. And when your parents, when you heard them talking at the dinner table about the stuff and you left to go watch TV, you're like, all right, now it's kind of making sense. And now it's our turn. I love it. So, and that's an interesting thing. When you look at what's going on around the world right now, it also plays another important role too. You look at foreign policy, and these two have very different foreign policy ideas. What they're gonna do with the military, how they're gonna go out and project, American power and influence around the world, and it's radically different. I mean, very opposed. Well, I have something to say on that one.
Let's hear it.
I mean, look, I was on. I think I was on Fox Business when that video came out of all those guys on their knees out there in the ocean with the guns down. That was a huge deal. Huge deal. I mean, that could have went differently. Those same guys could have engaged. It's not down. Ultimately, it's not on them. Right? They're taking orders.
Yep.
So if you want to know how strong you really are, there's your example right there. I'm on our knees, and most people don't realize how what an impact that had everywhere else.
Oh, massive.
United States on their knees. And then you got these MiGs strafing those destroyers.
Brother, it's happened just the other day.
The captain of that boat wouldn't blow that dude out of the sky just for practice.
Whammy. Gone.
You're gonna do a flyby. You're going to strafe an American destroyer. You must be out of your mind.
Well, brother, how many people actually know that?
Be out of your mind with it being in radar shot of that thing. I mean, it shouldn't be one of those where like, let's test them to see if they might shoot us down. Just the fact that you even think you can test the boy, that guy out there is.
It's crazy. And how many people in the country actually even know that we've lost 4 Americans in the last 2 weeks in Iraq and Afghanistan? I mean, nobody even understands that this war is still going on. And whether it's radical Islam or it's,
Well, we've got moved to an advisor role.
Absolutely, but it's still. I mean, we're still in the fight for sure. I mean,
well, we know that the American public, when we got transferred over to an advisor role, people die all over the country. That's how you can shake that down.
Right. Look at how Charlie Big Chuck died. I mean, they QRF'd him. He took on 20 dudes. Took on 600 ISIS fighters. And we're going strong. So there are people, whether it's the teams or it's other people out there still on the front line, still projecting American power out there in a positive, influential way that's supposed to keep us great. And I think that's an important thing to understand is that we are a great country. We are the greatest country out there.
Well, we're from every country.
Right? That's what
melting pot of every country. It's kind of one feels like I hate Americans. Well, what other country do you hate? Yeah, just be us because we may have somebody from everybody.
Totally, and that's what makes America great, right? Is the fact that we can come together, we can join.
we keep producing generations of men and women who will go do it.
Amen. But they're getting smaller. They're
That
smaller.
could very well stop.
Oh, it could stop tomorrow. Indifference is like a disease, right? Indifference, once it settles into your heart and it settles into your life that, you know what, this doesn't mean anything to me. This election isn't important to me. This election isn't going to affect my life, whether I'm on the front line or I'm flipping burgers or I'm running my small business or I'm in the financial world. It's not going to affect me. The reality is it does affect us.
Well, I mean, history repeats itself all the time.
Amen.
The technology is what's different.
Yep.
And the farther you get away from a certain point in history, the more likely it is to repeat itself, especially if you don't study it or if you're changing it. And then it could go either way. It will repeat itself because
we are human beings.
We're human beings.
And the human condition doesn't understand historical relevance Well, listen, brother, that was a great talk, man. And I think, one of the interesting things that you and I both believe in, we want our listeners to know is that, hey, regardless of what's going to hit you, when it's going to hit you, the hard times, the good times, whether it's politics, whether it's work, it's immigration, it's constitution, it's whatever it is, it's important in your life to understand what's going on. It's important in your life to get out there and not quit on your civic duty, right? Understand who these two people are, understand what their focus is and how it's going to affect you in your life, because it makes the difference on how you're going to vote here in about a week. And that's critical. Understand what's around. So Marcus,
I guess the best way to get into it, if you are one of those who you are going to go out and vote and you do care about what's going on, make sure you educate yourself on both sides, and don't limit yourself just to what somebody else tells you. Get out there and experience it. That's the best way to do it.
Well, I love that. That's the perfect segue to bringing on the person, our guest, who truly is passionate about what he's doing, and in particular, which is supporting his father. And I got to tell you, we're so excited to bring him on to give his perspective on some unique ideas that we really wanted to understand, Marcus and I. So without further ado, what do you say, Marcus? Let's bring on Donald Trump Jr., should we?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, Marcus, we're here. We made it here. We made it to this point, man, and we got him on. He's coming. I mean, we've been hounding him. We've been dogging him. We've been going. We've been pushing hard, but we finally got him on the podcast.
Go find it.
You had to go track him down. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome Mr. Donald Trump Jr. Donald, thank you so much for being on with us, brother.
It's my pleasure, guys. Hey, I don't know. I don't think I was that hard to find. When you guys said you wanted me on, I said I got to do that. I mean, that's the American way, right?
It seems
no
like
idea what it took to get to that exact point, though.
Okay, well, next time we know a lot of guys in common. Just shoot me a text,
Absolutely.
You got it. All right. So we're gonna jump right in this. All right, and this is the way we roll on this podcast. Is we're gonna get right to it. Number one, what everybody wants to know, because what we do on this show is we bring people from all walks of life on to hear the world's greatest never quit story. So, Don Jr., can you please just start out and tell us, in your opinion, what is your dad's greatest never quit story?
Oh, wow. Well, listen, as you've seen, he's not a quitter. You can't do what he's been doing for 40 years if you're a quitter. But honestly, I'd say, I was pretty young at the time. I was, just probably 12 years old at the time, and this was the early 90s when sort of the first real estate depression of his, career sort of kicked in. And I remember he was walking down the street. It's sort of a great story. On Fifth Avenue, there was a blind homeless man that used to sit there, and he would sell pencils for years. He was there. He was sort of a fixture on Fifth Avenue. And my father was walking by with what's my stepmother, and he goes, look over there. You see that guy? She goes, yes. He's worth $900 million more than I am right now. And she goes, what do you mean? We live in Trump Tower. What do you mean? He goes, no. Assume he's worth zero. He's worth 900 more than I am right now. And I think
wow.
That really showed sort of the magnitude of what happened in the early 90s. And rather than give up, rather than declare bankruptcy like so many other people, he fought and he fought, and a little bit different than the way you guys fight, but in a suit. But he was in there every day. He worked 24/7 for months and even years at a time to be able to fight. And it wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for the tens of thousands of people he actually employs. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between him and so many of these politicians today. He's actually employed real people. Employment and talking about job creation, it's not some magical unicorn that you summons by pushing a button like the politicians would have you believe. He's actually done it. And so he fought every day for himself, for his family, and for the people and families whose livelihoods depended on his success and the success of his company. So that was just an amazing story for me because, it just sort of showed the magnitude of where he was in that low. And rather than giving up and rather than saying, okay, bankruptcy, I'll go to court, we'll figure it out later, he went in and he made deals and he fought for every last cent and every last yard to be able to claw back and really, bring his company and himself, from the brink to a much bigger level of success than he had ever experienced even before that. So to me, that was always an amazing story because it just shows you, how far you can go if you just never stop, if you don't give up. And again, you've seen it over the last 18 months. I mean, he doesn't stop. When our candidate's taking 3-4 naps a day, my father's giving 5 or 6 rallies a day to 10, 15, 20, 25,000 people at a time. The level of work ethic, the level of energy, you just can't compare the two.
It's remarkable to me. I can't. I mean, he's better than the Energizer Bunny, Marcus. I'll tell you what.
No pun intended there, but yeah.
When I heard somebody asking a question like, "What do you do for exercise?" Like, you ever been on a presidential campaign? That's exercise, man. It's nonstop.
No. It's funny, man. I've done that on days where I'm out there and I'm nothing compared to him. I follow him around for a day. I'm 38 in pretty good shape, and man, I get done with the day, I'm beat. But you're right. You get up and speak in front of a crowd, and you're giving them that energy. Marcus, you do a lot of this kind of speaking. I mean,
exactly.
You give them that energy, and you need to give them the energy. Otherwise, you come across terribly. But you give them that energy. I've walked off the stage, and it felt like I just did a squat workout. It's weird. You were like, what did I do? I was speaking for 25 minutes, but it takes it out of you.
It does. I mean,
especially if you're passionate.
Or something, you could count air miles plus your foot miles in a day.
I did 6 separate flights one day last week for 15 different events. I mean, think about it, 6 flights in one day. Like that was just the logistical part of it. That had nothing to do with actually doing anything. It's a brutal process, but if you have the energy and you have the willpower, you can do it.
Awesome,
man. A while back, Mr. Trump flew down. I got to spend the day with him and kind of just when the campaign was early on. And one of the things I really respect about their family is their family.
Yeah.
I mean, and this isn't a shot across y'all's bow or anything like that, but when you have a father who's in the public spotlight and he is who their father is, man, usually if you have as many kids as they do, some of them are going to maybe venture away or something. I mean, all those kids are squared away. That's what I was looking at. And then when I got to know y'all, that really resonated, and it's kind of the way it is in my family. And this is the next question, actually, brother. But a lot of guys, man, they don't have fathers like that. They get that never quit mindset from somebody else, a TV show or an athlete or something like that. Man, you guys, as close as y'all are, and that lineage and how y'all work together, that never quit mindset. Was there that one time where you saw something? You know what I'm talking about? It's that one day I was like, oh yeah, I got it now. That's the path I'm supposed to walk. And I'm sure it's different for every one of your siblings, or hell, it could have been the same. You know what I'm talking about? One of those moments.
I do. Well, so much of it is just watching him. When you get to be around a guy who's it's like an animal, the energy and the fight, and that he doesn't quit. So you absorb some of that because you see it. It's like, wow, this is how you conduct yourself. For us, that's normal, even though it's not. But
exactly. You don't know the difference.
But for us, I think for me, honestly, it was the way he brought us up in the way that, and both my parents really, but to make sure that we knew how lucky we were to have the blessings that we had, that we came from a wealthy family, that we had these great opportunities, but they always made us work. And it wasn't like, hey, go make your bed and you get a car. It was, by the time you earned what you wanted, it was no longer cool, right? It was like, I got Nintendo when everyone else got Sega. If I'm not dating myself with that one. So it was always like that. So I remember, when I started working, I was about 13 years old. I was away for the summer working as a dock attendant in what was that Atlantic City, hooking up sewage system, hooking up electrical systems,
nice.
And I did that for about 2 summers, and that was nice. You're on the docks. I was making minimum wage and tips, so I think everyone should work for tips. That teaches you something about service and being humble and getting it done. But he was like, then, okay, now we're going to go a little bit more aggressive. I started working in landscaping. So I would say I'm the only son of a billionaire who can drive a D10 Caterpillar because I've actually done it.
How to do it.
And so
Awesome.
I was working landscaping and running chainsaws and clearing out stuff. And I mean, brutal work. And I remember about 3/4 of the way through summer, I go, man, I used to make minimum wage and tips. There's no tips in landscaping. It's just working. And so I'm making a minimum wage. And I end up going to him and go, hey, Dad, why haven't I gotten a raise yet? He goes, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm making minimum wage. I'm not making the tips I used to make when I was younger and having more fun and easier work. He goes, well, did you ask for it? I go, no. He goes, well, why would I pay you more than you're willing to work for? That was the introduction to negotiation. It wasn't, this is how to negotiate a deal. It's like, hey, little man, you don't get anything in life you don't ask for. If you don't fight for it, you're not going to get it. Life's not just going to hand you things. And so, that's when I learned about negotiation. So I tried to go retroactive. That failed miserably, but I learned you don't get anything in life you don't ask for if you don't fight for it.
I asked that same question to my father too, and he swung the common sense bat around on me pretty hard, and it's an eye-opening deal when that happens. But that's exactly what you said.
But you know what?
Got to work for it.
Hey, I'm talking about it. Let's call it 25 years later. So it sunk in.
Oh, they always do. Those lessons are the greatest lessons that we learn. I mean, we talk about it all the time on the show that, the most powerful lessons that stay with you for the rest of your life are exactly what we're talking about right now. That dedication to hard work, the witness of something profound, hearing stuff that just is driven into your psyche that you don't deny that, and you allow it to just keep coming back as a badge or an idea that kind of represents who you are and what your character is.
That's
now.
your baseline.
Yeah, your baseline. Absolutely.
It was so simple, and yet it stuck with me. He could have sat me down for a 3-hour lecture. It would have not had nearly the effect of, why would I pay you more than you were willing to work for? So if I wasn't going to ask for myself, why would I do it? And I was like, man, he makes a solid point. Those few words were a lot more important than any lecture I'd ever learned.
Especially if you've been out there all day busting your ass. You come in here like, hey, what do you talk about this?
It was totally demoralizing, but it was amazing at the same time,
I love it. All right, next question for you is, in our world in the teams, right, our greatest cultural attributes are really ideas like honor, integrity, high standards. And one of the things that I want to, you talk again and again about witnessing your father and his commitment to the people in his organizations, the commitment to, the people all around him. And especially we're talking about you guys and his commitment to you. What about your father's actions being in sync with that kind of mindset? Is it every day that it happens? And how often a day do you watch and witness his commitment to those things?
Well, it's quite often. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, those are the things he holds in highest regard. I mean, you could see, and you guys probably heard, I mean, he was pretty frustrated in 2008. He was pretty frustrated in 2012. He's not a guy that's just going to sit there and talk smack from the sidelines. I mean, he said, okay, it's time to get in. But the reason he didn't get in earlier in 2008 or in 12, was because, I'm the oldest son, and we're in a family business, and he wasn't going to leave those tens of thousands of employees that he actually has and say, hey, congratulations, my son's 28 or 29, whatever I was in 2008, and say, good luck. He's probably competent. I'm not 100% sure, but he wasn't going to risk those people's livelihoods, their family's well-being, for that. So, I mean, I think that shows an incredible level of loyalty. And he always, from day one of the great stories he ever told me was about the building of Trump Tower. Trump Tower was built by, we're right next to Tiffany's here on Fifth Avenue. It was sort of his namesake first big project. And when he was building Trump Tower, the guy that owned Tiffany's owned the air rights above it. So sort of, let's call it the space above the buildings. Mm-hmm. You can transfer that stuff around in New York. So for Trump Tower to go as tall and be as big and majestic as it is, he had to own the air rights. So he made this deal, and it was a handshake deal with the owner of Tiffany's next door to buy the air rights for a set number of dollars. And, they made this handshake deal, and, they went and told the lawyers to draw it up. And he went to go close on this thing and show up for the closing. And he goes and he goes to the closing, and this other guy from their lawyers say, they realized what was going on and what happened. And they go, no, well, we got to renegotiate. The price is way too low. There's no way we can do this. You should not do it. They're telling. And the guy from Tiffany's goes, guys, you don't understand. I gave him my word.
Awesome.
I gave him a handshake. And, my father's sitting there being like, yeah, God, I'm going to get retraded, and, I may not even be able to do this project that ultimately was really, what started off his major career. But this guy kept his word. And I remember my father telling me that story, and that was more of a lecture. Like, you better be like this yourself one day. You better remember these kind of things, because today you can't, what used to be a handshake, now you need 400 pages and documents signed by everyone, notarized by people. So that story that he always told me about honor and loyalty, and honoring your commitments, that was amazing, and that was one of those that always really stuck. And it's the way he's conducted himself. I mean, it's that way, that's standard that's so missing in so much of America today, that he'd love to be able to bring back. And unfortunately, it's not likely. We live in more complicated times. But that story about, hey, this guy could have done whatever he wanted. What was a handshake? How are you going to prove it? How are you going to, but that this guy would go against his lawyers and go against millions and millions and millions of dollars to be able to say, no, you don't understand. I gave my word, and we're going to honor the pledge. That handshake allowed my father to become who he is. Who knows what would have happened if he wasn't able to build this thing?
Wow.
Well, I think that just goes to show you that you keep that integrity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Correct.
I understand if you can be as powerful as you want, but eventually in this country, if you're not that way, you're gonna suffer and go away.
It all comes out in the wash.
Right? And
100%. And you see that, and people call him out on it. They say, but think about it. Like, you can't be in business if you're not that way for long periods of time. You can be a bull in a china shop, and you can be a jerk, and you can roll someone over once. You can do it twice. But you can't do it for 40 years.
No.
You can't do it for 40 years like my father has, and still be out there and still be known and still have this reputation, and still be able to get the best deals and still be able to have amazing people who've worked for you for 30 years. You can get away with it a couple times, but I mean, I wish that's the side of my father that I wish more Americans could see.
Well, you're telling them, brother. You're telling them right now. We love that you're out there doing it.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So the next question I got is, one of the wild things about becoming an operator in special operations is we got a real, strong reputation of being renegades, of, playing outside the box, counterinsurgency, guerrilla warfare, in particular us in the teams, unconventional, that our predecessors in Vietnam started. And one of the things that, is obvious, I mean, glaringly obvious, just open up a paper and look at, the onslaught of opposition against your pop, is that he is outside the political establishment. Now, in a lot of times people are condemning y'all for doing this. Do you agree with this comparison? And if you do, is it an asset to your father if and when he becomes elected next week?
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, listen, I think there's no doubt that he's a renegade, right? I think, you guys would probably agree that if the elite in the media, if the elite politicians, on both sides, frankly, because both sides have really failed us, right? Both sides have gotten us into this mess. Both sides have made so many promises that they'll never be able to deliver on because they've never done it in the real world. They're just politicians. If Wall Street's against you, if Hollywood's against you, if, again, both sides of the political spectrum are against you and the elite, guess what? You're probably doing something right, because those guys have all gotten really rich off of this system. Those guys have gotten really rich while the American public, the average people, the men and women who built this great nation, they haven't seen an effective pay raise in 20 years. While D.C. gets rich and all the zip codes around D.C. are the richest in the country, if all those people are against you, hey, A, you're a renegade, and B, you're probably doing something right because his heart's in the right place. I always say this, and I've gotten in trouble for it, but I'll say it again because I don't care. My dad doesn't need this job. Right? He doesn't need this job. Okay, he doesn't need it. He wants this job because he loves this country. He loves what it stands for. He loves the American dream. And he wants to make sure that all people, all ethnicities, all backgrounds, that they have the same opportunity to start a great business, to raise a great family, to live the American dream. And guess what? The politicians who've made us all these promises for decades, what have they got us? Nothing. They've got us $20 trillion in debt. Okay, they've got us into terrible situations all over the place, whether that be fiscally, whether that be in wars, whether that be a crumbling infrastructure, whether that be a crumbling military infrastructure that you guys could speak to better than I can. But I went to a high school that 25% of my class went to one of the academies, and I hear from those guys, we're stranded in Guam because they don't have parts for the F-18 anymore. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Man, that's a great point you made to think about like that. There's a difference between making a lot of money in those positions when you're in politics and then actually having to be in the deep end of the pool and have
I had someone
on all ends and still being successful.
100%. I had someone the other day say, well, isn't it terrible that you talk about the Clintons making $250 million when your father's a billionaire? I go, hey, there's a difference. My father's created jobs. My father's done this in the private sector.
Yeah.
The Clintons, what have they created? What have they created? They've created nothing. They've sold American influence. Okay, Bill Clinton gives a 6 or 7 figure check in Russia. 2 weeks later, Hillary Clinton signs off on us selling 20% of U.S. uranium to the Russians. I mean, think about that.
That's heavy.
Think about that. And by the way, that doesn't include the hundreds of thousands. What about the $10 billion that went into Haiti that no one in Haiti knows where it went? It went to all the Clinton friends. I mean, think about that. And I don't know what's worse, guys, that it's happening or that so few people actually care.
That to me is what is shocking. I mean,
It's out in the open. It's just the
people.
All right, exactly. All right, here you go. Ready? we can go deep on that one, brother.
We'll pull out of that rabbit hole right now.
You guys know more than me, but you understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And Marcus, I know
that's why I was saying
you know a lot of the guys that I know. So I know a lot of people within your community. I'm a competitive shooter. I'm a big hunter. The sportsman's group, the shooting groups, they all sort of go hand in hand. So I have so many friends. I mean, the thousands of stories that you guys could all tell about the inefficiency, the waste, the fraud, the abuse, the amount of time it takes to get simple things done. Hey, guys, politicians got us there. There's no difference in this batch than there was in the last, other than my father. And really, that's a partisan problem. I'm a pretty conservative guy, but I got to say it. That's both sides of the aisle that are put in this mess.
Yep.
Oh, there were plenty of times when we'd go out into the civilian world to get our stuff because they know how to do it. So,
Yep.
I tell you one thing we were talking about when I got a chance to meet it was, and this leads me to my next question, is the veterans community. Look, here's the deal, and it keeps popping up on the news every day, but veterans dying in the streets and the VA problem is just a travesty. That's an American travesty. I just can't. I want universal health care. Sure, I want everybody to be taken care of, man. But if you want to know what that looks like, that's the VA. And the guys that came back and were getting spit on and everything are the ones that are dying now. And it's just kind of come full circle, and that's just disgusting. And your dad understands that. It's one of the things that we talked about when we were together with Governor Perry. But
it's disgusting that the men and women who go serve this country, they come back and they have worse health care than people who don't even belong here. Illegal immigrants that come on here. There's people that want to give them Obamacare when we have tens of thousands of vets living in the streets in squalor. I mean, what have we become, man? I turn on the TV some mornings, and I see these, let's call them journalists, but they're, basically, liberal henchmen. I call them journalists, but we'll use that in quotes. And they're saying we should be more concerned about the feelings of people in Iran and, the Middle East who, if they could push a button, would wipe us off the face of the earth. People who can't stand our values, can't stand our religion, can't stand our freedoms. We should be more concerned about their feelings than we are about the safety and well-being of our children, than we are about the health and well-being of our vets coming back from these wars.
Amen.
And it's disgusting. And my father was talking about this from day one. The VA system and what goes on, and I know you guys know more about it than I do, but again, I have a lot of friends in the community, and I see what goes on. I see the amount of time that it gets, and I see all the loopholes that they figure out. Well, you did this. We were talking about Mark Geist, earlier. Mm-hmm. Before anyone got on, and who's a buddy of mine, the ways that they'll try to, make sure that he can't be part of the system because, XYZ, because he was then a contractor, so it no longer counts. It's disgusting. And yet these are the same people that are rallying to give free health care to illegal immigrants. They wanted to give them, guys, when you're on a plane, every time before you go up on a plane, and I've been on quite a few these days, they say, hey, if the plane goes down, put your oxygen mask on before you help those around you. Well, guess what, guys? We got to take care of America first.
Amen.
It's not like we don't have problems. Once we get rid of our problems, which we have plenty of, then we can worry about everyone else. But we got to take care of our vets. How about we educate our kids and not be number 28 or 30 in education in the world behind a long list of third world countries? After that, we can do that, but we can't even take care of our own problems. And we want to bring in millions of people and put them on a system that doesn't. Meanwhile, if you're competent, if you go to Harvard, we throw you out of the country, and you're from another country and you want to start businesses and we'll throw you out that quickly. It's crazy. None of this stuff makes any sense. Well, I can only imagine the Democrats want to do it so they can secure, the vote for the rest of eternity. But we have to be able to take care of Americans first. And the fact that if you say that today, you're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, I mean, it's crazy. I don't even know what's going on.
It's
we're
nuts.
not. We say, and we're not. I'm you hear that all the time too, and there's just, don't throw that our direction. That crap won't stick.
It's unsat.
Right?
Well,
but the fact that they try, and the fact that that's the narrative, and they'll hit you with it so hard to try to suppress your free thought. They want all this. Everything's about diversity today, except for diversity in thought. You could fill all the check boxes, but you're not diverse unless you think exactly the way that they do, and that's scary because it's ludicrous.
That's a great point you're making, and that leads me into this next question, and exactly what we're talking about here is your guys' campaign slogan is to make America great again, and to really become exceptional, right? To stand out in the world in all these things, VA system, immigration, foreign affairs, all that stuff, to become great again. But you're right. There is massive anger in the streets right now. How do you guys, how does your dad, how's he going to, let's say he gets elected, how is he going to bring the country back together again and show people, hey, listen, being great and having America great again is a positive for you? How is he going to do that? How is he going to bridge this gap between us?
Well, first of all, I think it's about infusing common sense back into D.C., right?
Yeah.
That's been totally missing. There is no common sense anymore. Everything's based around, some sort of PC norm that it's ludicrous. So, honestly, I think the best way to do it is what he started is drain the swamp campaign, right? Hey, congressional term limits. These guys shouldn't be in there for 35, 40 years, sitting there, getting their friends rich. Okay, preventing those same people in government and the high-level people who've been serving them from then going and being lobbyists for countries like Saudi Arabia so they can make millions of dollars, selling short America. We got to infuse some common sense back into the system.
I dig it.
We got to be able to take care of Americans first. I mean, think of what we could do if we could bring jobs back to this country instead of getting these ridiculous tax codes that the politicians can't understand. They can't understand them because they've never had to abide by them. They exempt themselves from most of these rules first and foremost, but they've never created anything, so they wouldn't know how to do it. Bring that money back to the U.S. Put that back in the system. Think of what that could do. That could bring back
Huge.
a family structure. If
Massive.
you weren't so stressed about the finances, imagine what that would do. If you had a good family structure left in this country, if you got rid of that stress, if we could put it back into education, and not just education for one group, but put it, the $20 billion that my father wants to put in inner city schools, that no one talks about because that would go against the media narrative of Trump's a terrible human being. But he wants to do that for all people in this country. Let's try to break that cycle of poverty. There's so much we can do, but we got to have some common sense. And we can't have the highest levels of government being influenced and on the salaries and payrolls of countries that hate us for their benefit. It doesn't work anymore.
Well, exactly, because it's such a pattern now that you don't want to disrupt anything enough to where it would make enough noise to draw attention. So that's 100%.
I think my father's also done something different in that he's also inspired other people who aren't bureaucrats, people who aren't just politicians. They say, hey, Donald, I've seen it 100 times. Donald, I may not want to run for office. I've seen what you've done. I've seen the hits that you've taken, the stones that have been thrown at you, the spears that have been launched at you. I've seen all that. It may not be for me, but I've been on the other side of government on this. I've been, whether it's contract or whatever it may be. And they say, you know what? I want to be in your cabinet. I want to work getting rid of the waste. I want to work on getting rid of the fraud, the abuse, the inefficiency, the gridlock that we've seen in D.C. So I think we have the opportunity to put in a cabinet for the first time in a long time that's not just comprised of the same old people.
That's cool.
The people who got us in this mess to begin with, to be able to get some people from outside of Washington inspired and into government, I think that would be awesome. And I've seen so many people come up to my father and say that they want to do that. So I think it's important.
Well, I think the scariest thing for them is he's going to walk in there and tell them you're fired. I mean, that's no joke. He's going to go in there and they're scared to death.
Oh, no, it's time. I mean, that's what he said. He wants to drain the swamp. He wants to impose congressional term limits. Get in and do what you were supposed to do based on what our founding fathers wanted. We would have given Washington the kingship. We would have given him the lifetime presidency, but he didn't want it. He said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do my part, I'm going to get it started, and then others are going to come in.
I love
Our
it.
founding fathers never envisioned a political elite class where people get in there, they sit there for decades. There's guys in there 35, 40 years. It's crazy. To do
It
what?
is.
To enrich their friends, to make sure that the same old stuff gets going. I mean, these are the guys that got us in this mess, and we want to reward them with the presidency again? I mean, the most corrupt candidate in the history of the presidency. You want to reward that kind of behavior by giving them the presidency? It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Baffling.
It is.
All right, brother. Hey, I appreciate you coming on here, man. I know you got a lot of stuff to do. Before we get out of here, though, there's one thing I have to ask everybody this question when they come on here, man. Just in case. I just need to know what your favorite superhero is, man. Come on, send it to me.
Mine or my father's?
Well, I want both. Yeah, send me both.
I think for him, it's got to be some sort of hybrid between Superman and Captain America. You need the
Love
American
it.
part, but I think Superman's got all these qualities that you want. I mean, he's got to, for me, I don't know. I'm the son of a rich billionaire from Gotham, let's call it. So maybe I'm Batman. I think I'm Batman. You just don't know it yet. Maybe one day it'll come out.
That's epic.
We need to talk about that offline. I think we get something going here, brother. That Batman thing.
You never know, man. Maybe I've been a vigilante crime fighter for years, and you just haven't known it yet. So maybe I blew my cover.
Well, your time is coming, brother. Your time is coming. So,
Hey, thank you again for having us on,
yeah,
man.
thank you so much, Donald Jr. We appreciate it. God bless you.
Hey, guys, thank you so much. It was an honor speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking to you both soon.
You got it. God bless you.
Be good.
Dude, I would say, one of the wild things is everybody keeps saying how impressive the Trump kids are, right? And how committed they are, how focused, how well they speak, how eloquent they are, how and how passionate they are about their father and the decisions made. I tell you what, I heard that loud and clear from Don Jr. Did you hear that?
Oh, sure. You don't even have to talk to him and listen to that. You can just look at the family dynamic in the public spotlight and the fact they love each other. You can tell that. That's the one thing when I got a chance to meet him and spend the day with him, that's what stood out.
I mean, it really does. I mean, even Secretary Clinton said so at the end of the debate. She goes, what's the one thing you can say positive about, Mr. Trump? And she's like, he's got great kids. and that
says
shows
a lot about the man, right?
It does. It does.
That said a ton. That she said that especially if you have kids, you know what we're talking about.
Oh my God, that's
say, your
everything.
kids are great, and then you hear from your friend like, "Oh, hey, the same person told me that your kids were a nightmare." I'm like, wait, my kids are a nightmare? Are you kidding me?
Wait a minute. Yeah, they were running all around breaking stuff. They had zero manners. You want to just punch yourself in your own face, right? Well, I think it's
to run $1 billion industry and to be in the public spotlight and on TV and running for president on top of which. Running a great family. That's
I thought it was real interesting too when he talked about his dad's greatest never quit story. I mean, that really blew me away when he equated that guy on the street who had nothing to where he was $940 million in the hole. That guy was richer than him. And that lesson that popped right back in his mind, man. That's powerful. I think this guy, although many people are questioning, I think to his core, what he's been able to do with his children and grow his business. There's something there, man. There's something powerful there.
well, I care about the country.
Yeah.
You can point fingers at them all day long about being billionaires and putting their name on buildings and stuff like that. I get that too, man. But there's people who are billionaires that do that for themselves.
Yep.
A lot of people benefit from what they do.
Yeah.
Some people don't do that. And that's easy to overlook as well. I mean, it could very well shut it down and just how many people will be out of work. And you got to think somebody like that wouldn't step aside and do this, and in order to
give
tear
that life up.
to tear it down, because then they would be losing as well.
Big time. He's gonna this could affect his kids, his business, everything in the future, right? And he's still stepping up to the plate. And
I've never met a grandfather that didn't want to leave this country better for their grandkids than they found it.
Amen.
I just never found one. Now you can find a single guy, you might even find a dad. You ain't gonna find a grandfather that's gonna leave this thing in the ditches.
No.
That's not how it works. I've just never seen that.
No, and that should be every person. Every American should feel that, right? Every American should say, "What am I doing to make the country better?" Not to say that you shouldn't be, focused on earning a good living and making it out for your family and all that. But we each have a responsibility.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. Educate, get out, grow a family and love them. And that's what he did his entire life. And now stepping up and going through that whole process of being a civilian and now stepping into the political world. That's how it's supposed to work, actually.
It
right?
is, isn't it? Right? That is kind of how it's supposed to work for sure. Well, Marcus, man, brother, it was great having him on. I think hopefully this will give some people a new perspective, and really hope just people, make a good decision here next week, and a decision that they care about. A decision whatever side of the aisle that they've invested themselves. They've been educated on these topics, some of which we talked about in the beginning, and they really are focused on what is going to help America. And I think, regardless if they go blue or go red, man, just make an informed decision and keep America going as it needs to go, because we need some positivity out there, brother.
Oh, sure. And don't be afraid. I mean, this country's great. We're going to survive. Don't worry about it.
Amen to that.
Just you said it perfectly, man. I mean, just be proud. Get up there, and this is the time of year where this country does this. It happens every time, and every year it's this is the worst one we've ever had. And we
try the Civil War.
We love each other too much not to let anything come in between it. So we'll rally back together, right?
Who you want to give thanks to, brother?
I'll give thanks to the good Lord for giving me all my abilities, and thanks to my friends who helped me find them, and thanks to my wife for finding me and loving me. Man, I love that woman, boy. I love you, honey.
Boss. I dig it.
Yeah, I love you, babe. And thanks to for DJ coming on here, man. They got a busy schedule, and I've been out with them for a couple times, so I know how crazy it is, man. For them to take the time to do that was a lot. So thanks to the Trump family. Thank you.
That's cool. I just want to thank, again, I want to thank God first and foremost. I want to thank America. America, you've given me so much, and just really just feel totally blessed to be an American, have participated with America on the front lines, and now to be assisting and helping people make good decisions. I want to thank my family. Thank you, Marcus, for doing the show with me, brother. I feel very blessed for us to be able to have this outreach to influence our listeners that, hey, even when the times are tough, even when things seem crazy, even when there's a lot of anger going on, a lot of challenges, man, just don't quit. Stay focused and don't quit. Lead a good life and support America, man, and you're going to get through it, I promise you. So thank you so much, and God bless. Let's roll.
I'm out.
I'm out.
Never quit. Team Never Quit. Team Never Quit Radio.